Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Zuama. In here I will explain the material about the hypothesis in quantitative research. Our research makes us the question, what is the effect of preschool training on the first grade achievement of culturally disadvantaged children? The hypothesis culturally disadvantaged children who have had preschool training achieve at a higher level in first grade than culturally disadvantaged children who have not had preschool training. You can see in the hypothesis relate the variable of preschool training and first grade achievement. School students who have firstly taken music lesson will have higher math aptitude scores. School students who have siblings will be more popular among their peers than students who do not have siblings. School children who do not get adequate sleeps will perform at a lower level academically than will their peers who have adequate sleeps. Although hypotheses serve several important purposes, some research studies may proceed without them. Hypotheses are tools in the research process, not as in themselves. A research may not know which outcome to predict. For example, the survey then seeks to describe the characteristic of particular phonema or to ascertain the attitude and opinion of group, often processed without hypothesis. Principal purpose several by the hypothesis include the following. Hypothesis purpose detail explanation for phonema. They simulate a research and then result in the accumulation of new knowledge. Hypothesis testing research permits investigators to validate or fail to validate theory through accumulation of data from many studies. Hypothesis provides the investigator with a relation statement that is directly testable in a research study. This is easily possible to collect and analyze data, then will confirm or fail to confirm the hypothesis. Hypothesis provides direction to the research. The hypothesis possesses a specific relationship between variable and thus determines the nature of data needed to test the proposition. Very simple. The hypothesis tells the research what to do. Facts must be selected and observation made because they have relevance to a particular question, and the hypothesis determines the relevance of these facts. The hypothesis provides a basic for selecting the sampling, measurement, and research products to use, as well as the approximational analysis. Furthermore, the hypothesis helps keep the study research in scope, preventing it from becoming too broad or unwieldy. For example, consider again the hypothesis concerning preschool experience of culturally disadvantaged children and their achievement in first grade. The hypothesis indicate the research method request and the sample, and it even direct to research to the statistical test that would be necessary for analyzing the data. It is clear from the statement of the hypothesis that the research will conduct an ex post facto study, then compress the first grade achievement of a sample of culturally disadvantaged children who went through a preschool program and a similar group and disadvantaged children who did not have preschool experience. Hypothesis provides a framework from reporting the finding a conclusion of the study. Deriving hypothesis inductively. The reason process should be accompanied by a examination of previous research to determine what fans author investigator have reported on the question. The including procedure in a particularly faithful source of hypothesis for classroom teachers. Teachers observe learning and other student behavior every day and try to relate in their own behavior to behavior of other student the sorry to be teacher methods used to change in the school environment and soon teacher might be observed, for example, then that when they present particularly challenging activities in the classroom, some study get motivation and relation build some will rest other withdraw from the challenge. Some students learn complex concepts based from primarily verbal presentation, whereas others learn based from discussion and hands-on activities. After reflecting on such experience, teacher may inductively formulate generalization, then seek to explain the observed relationship between their method and material and student learning. This tentative expression of why things happen as they do can become the hypothesis in empirical investigation. Sorry. The teacher reasoned that this freedom to make comments must somehow reduce anxiety and as a result the students score better. Not that the hypothesis express the teacher belief concerning the relationship between the two variables, not also that the variable action that was part of the reasoning chain leading to the hypothesis is not part of the final hypothesis. The relationship between uncheck and comment and uncheck of the performance could be subject from subsequent hypothesis to investigate. The following are additional examples of hypotheses that might be offered at inductively from a teacher observation. In the inductive process, the researcher makes observations things about the problem, turns to the literature from class, make additional observations, and then formulates hypotheses that seek to unknown from the observer's behavior. The researcher then tests the hypothesis under controlled conditions to examine scientifically to assume concerning the relationship between the specific variables. Deriving hypothesis deductively. In contrast, the hypothesis follows a generalizing from observer's relationship. Some other and delivery be deduction from theory. Their hypotheses have the advantage of leading to a more general system of knowledge because the framework from incorporation them meaningfully into the body of knowledge already exists within the theory. A hypothesis delivery from a theory is known as a deductive hypothesis. The frame of reference from most students would be the perceived academic ability of their classmates. If this is true, then one might hypothesize that good students would have lower academic self-concept if they were placed in a selective homogeneous group than if they were in heterogeneous of mixed ability group in which they compare themselves to less able students. And thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Hello, my name is Aivi Mufdia Nabila Farida, NIM 191611166, halaman 86 sampai 91. I will presentation for group 10. Characteristic of a usable hypothesis. After tentatively formulating the hypothesis, but before attempting any actually empirical testing, you must evaluate the hypothesis. The final worth of a hypothesis cannot be judged prior to empirical testing, but there are certain useful criteria for evaluating hypotheses. A hypothesis must be testable. The most important characteristic of a good hypothesis is testable. A testable hypothesis is variable, that is, deduction, conclusion, of inference can be drawn from the hypothesis in such a way that empirical observation either support or do not support the hypothesis. The next, many hypotheses are hypotheses, as the many initially bestart are essentially used testable. For instance, the hypothesis preschool experience promotes the all-around judgment of the preschool children would be useful to test because of the difficulty of operationalizing and measuring all-around judgment. To be testable, a hypothesis must relate variables that can be measured. If no means are available for measuring the variable, then no one could gather the data necessary to test the validity of the hypothesis. We not emphasize the point to struggle. Users you can specify the depth, the indicator of Earth's variable, and subsequently can measure their variable. You cannot test the hypothesis. Make sure the variable can be give operational definition. Avoid the use of construction for which it will be difficult or impossible to find adequate measure. Constructs such as creative theoretism and democracy have actual acquired such diverse meaning that research agreement of operational definition of such as concept will be difficult, if not impossible. Remember, the variable must be defined in terms of identifiable and observable behavior. A hypothesis should be consistent with the existing body of knowledge. Hypotheses should not contradict previously well-established knowledge. The hypothesis, "my car will not start because the fluid in the battery has changed to could satisfy the first two characters but is so contrary to what is knowledge about the nature of matter you know what to phrase with. The hypothesis, the car will not start because the fluid in the battery has override to a low level, is content with a previous knowledge and therefore is worth its pursuing. A hypothesis should be stated as simple and concisely as possible. A hypothesis should be present in the form of a concise declarative statement. A complete and concise statement hypothesis makes clear what the research needs to do to test it. It also provides the framework for presenting the finding of the study. If a research is exploring more than one relationship, he or she will need to test more than one hypothesis. The general rule is to test only on one relationship in any n hypothesis. Next, there are two categories of hypotheses: research hypothesis and null hypothesis. The research hypothesis. Research hypotheses are the hypotheses developed from the observation, the related literature, and or the theory described in the study. A research hypothesis tests the relationship one accepts to find as a result of the research. In many PR statements about the expert relationship or the expert difference between the variables in the study, a hypothesis about the children's IQ and excites in the classroom will be statement there is a positive relationship between a IQ and excites in the elementary school children or children classified as having high IQs will exhibit more excites in the classroom than children classification as having low IQ. Research hypotheses may be statements in a directionally of non-directionary from a directional hypothesis that the direction of the predicates relationship of difference between the variables. The presenting two hypotheses about IQ and excites the relational. A directional hypothesis is that the when one has some basis for predicting a change in the state's direction. A no direction hypothesis in contrast states that a relationship or difference exist about without specifying the direction or natural of the expert finding. For example, there is relationship between IQ and exciting in children. The relator review general provides the basic for stating a research hypothesis as directional or directional. The next, the null hypothesis. It is impossible to test research hypothesis directly. You must first test a null hypothesis or symbiosis (HO) and assess the possibility that this null hypothesis is true. The null hypothesis is a statistical hypothesis. It is called the null hypothesis because it states that there is no relationship between the variables in the population. A null hypothesis states a negation, not the reverse of what the experimenter expects of predicate. Our research many hope to show that after an experimental statement, two populations will have different mean, but the null hypothesis was that after the statement the population means will be different. Null hypothesis lets the research ascend whether apparent relationships are con- in the are likely to be a function of change alone. It that the result of the study called stately happened by Cheng. Statistical theses are used to determine the possible that the null hypothesis is true if the test indicates that observed relationship had only a slim probability of occurring by chance. The null hypothesis becomes a unlike explanation and the research reject its research aim to reject the null hypothesis as they try to show there is relationship between the variables of the study.
Hello, my name is Noni Nur K, NIM 196121157. I want to explain about page 66 until 70. Start. Other education focus periodical index. There are many other periodical index in the field of education that are useful for locating up-to-date information on research, as well as contemporary opinion. Some of the standard index in the file is 1. Education Index, which has been published regularly since 1929. This index lists articles in periodical yearbooks, bulletins, proceedings, and monographic series. Education Index is the best source for locating journal articles published prior to the establishment of ERIC. A disadvantage of Education Index is that it does not include abstract. 2. Exceptional Child Education Research, or ECER, is a quarterly publication that contains abstract of sorts in special and gift education. It uses the thesaurus indexing and abstracting rules that ERIC does, and there is considerable overlap with source indexed by ERIC and ESER. 3. The Physical Education Index provides a comprehensive database of all aspects of physical education. 4. Child Development Abstract and Bibliograph provide the author and subject approach to the area of infancy, clinical medicine, and public health, counseling and development, comparative and experimental psychology. 5. Educational Administration Abstract provide an author and subject approach to specials journal in the field of education administration. High education abstract in a complication of abstract from journal, conference, proceeding, and research report relating to the college student and student service. Topic covered include counseling and housing, financial aid, and testing and measure. Other useful database. ERIC is more useful to educators than CINFO. CINFO is a database with nearly 2 million records covering 2,000 journals, in addition to book and book chapter. The material conferred in the database is related to psychology, education, business, economy, linguistics, social work, healthcare, and many others. The article is a subject of CINFO that overflow text for some of the journal reference through CINFO. Information about this database is available at www.pcinfo.com. Citation index. 1. The short index in a alphabetical list of all authors published the journal covered by SSTI during the year. 2. The citation index presents an alphabet list of the first author all work cited in the article included in the short index. Follow their journal, volume, and first page for each for that author article. 3. In the part 2 term subject index takes every significant word and pairs it with every other significant word in each title. Each word in the title is then listed and primary term combined with each to the other terms as conterms. 4. The point with the term subject index. The corporate address index is an alphabetic listing of organizations which authors publish during the year are obligated. Books in print. As you would expect, books in print index those books that are currently in print both by author and by title. It enables you not only to learn what books are and are not in print but also which books have new edition and which have added or dropped author or changed published. And then test in print and mental measure yearbook. Test in print produced by Brewers Institute at the University of Nebraska. That's the same for commercially available tests. If you find a test that interests you in test in print, you are referring to the appropriate volume of Mental Measure Yearbook (MMY). For more information on the test or test purpose, test published, price, test acronym, intended test population, administration times, publication dates, test author, and in print status.